Toronto Raptors beat the Utah Jazz 107-100 and have now matched their total win total from last season already with about, I believe, 31 games left in the season. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of the Raptors Rundown. I'm your host, Yusuf Abbas, and yes, you heard that correctly. We have already matched our win total from last season. Granted, last season was a bit of a tanking season, obviously, and this year was a season where we are actually trying to win games, but it is a great achievement nonetheless. This has been a rough stretch of Raptors basketball as of late, but to me, the important thing about this is coming out with these wins, even through these games that are incredibly ugly, and this was another ugly one. To start off, I feel like the biggest talking point from this game was our huge turnover problem. Now, the thing was, we actually ended up winning the turnover battle against the Utah Jazz in this game. They had 24, we had 19. Unfortunately, to me, it felt like at least 10 of our 19 turnovers were completely unforced and incredibly, bad, and they were all due to our own mistakes. It's like passing up shots in transition, going to the rim, where there was one play where Scotty and Mom were just passing it back and forth, and nobody put up a shot, so Mom would just pass it right to the other team. There was another play where Jamison Battle, he ended up getting blocked. He ended up having his next pass tipped, and then he tried passing for a second time, and it got stolen and laid up in transition. So that play happened numerous times. There was one play where Mamu literally at the end of, I believe it was the third quarter, for no reason whatsoever, tried doing a backwards pass, ended up going off his back foot and out of bounds, giving the Utah Jazz another chance to score at the end of the quarter. So those unforced errors very well could have led to a loss tonight. And I mean, there were so many plays like that. There was one play where we actually messed up a 4-on-1 where we actually turned the ball over because Emmanuel quickly got way too cute in transition. He still does not know how to run in transition. This was the worst defense in the league, and they were forcing turnovers like they were the goddamn, Summer League Toronto Raptors. In fact, they were literally copying our strategy by going full court pressure for at least half of this game. And this is something the Utah Jazz have sort of been implementing in their games recently, going full court, trying to force turnovers. This is something Will Hardy has done to try and help their defense. They are ranked last in the entire NBA in defense, so Will Hardy's been trying to experiment with new things, and this worked out pretty well for them. On our end, the good things were, this always seemed like the sort of game where RJ Barrett would go off. He ended up leading scorers with 21 points tonight, and he really took advantage of getting to the rim. And I felt like he was the only person who was getting any sort of paint points in this game. They ended up keeping smaller defenders on him, and he was able to muscle through them, putting his body into them. There were a couple and ones that he got. Walter Clayton Jr. got torched so bad that he got traded a couple days later. And the other highlight for the Toronto Raptors had to have been Sandro Mamukelashvili, who actually ended up getting the chain tonight. Mamu had 20 points, he was 6 for 9 from the field, but the most important thing, he was 4 for 7 from 3-point range. Since that Portland game where he went off, he has been 1 for 9 from 3, with only one of those games where he hit it, and he went 1 for 4 in that game. And lo and behold, we've lost quite a few of those games where he hasn't shot very well. It's no surprise that our bench unit is really limited in scoring. You'll get the occasional game where Grady Dick's actually hitting his threes. You'll get the occasional game where Jamal Shedd's providing something on the offensive end other than assists. You'll get the occasional game where Jacoby Walter's hitting corner threes. But Sandro Mamukelashvili has been the only real source of consistent scoring from our bench. And that has not been the case as of late. So it's a lot to put on a bench player who's making the vet minimum. But Sandro is going to need to at least have 10 points in every single one of these games and at least hit some of his open threes. He was clanking a bunch of them in the past couple of games. It was good to see it come back, and he hit a bunch of huge threes in this game tonight. The end of this game was an absolute mess. I mean, the fourth quarter, you could see the box score. We ended up outscoring them 21-16 in the fourth quarter. It was so incredibly ugly. I had no idea what I was watching. One thing that pissed me off a lot defensively that we were doing, we kept allowing IQ to switch onto Lauri Markkanen, which that's just never going to go well, and then we would take way too long to bring the double. We were lucky that the Utah Jazz kept missing their shots because A, we couldn't get any rebounds anyways, and B, if they had hit any of those shots, if they shot better than the 28% from 3 that they shot tonight, they would have absolutely blown out the Toronto Raptors in this game. And I will credit our defense because our defense is still a top 5 defense in the league, but in a game like this, it felt like there were a lot of possessions where where the Utah Jazz, it felt like there were a lot of possessions where the Raptors got away with the Utah Jazz messing up something on offense. From their perspective, Lauri Markkanen was insane again. He continues to be such a bright spot on this team. We're lucky with no Keontae George in this one. Again, that would have been some much needed 3-point shooting for them. Their bench was absolutely terrible tonight. Kevin Love, Kyle Filipowski, Bryce Sensabaugh. None of them hit even a single three. They ended up going a combined 0 for 7. So they got a couple threes from Svi and Walter Clayton, but other than that, I think their bench shot well below 30% in this game. And yeah, they shot 36% from the field as a team today, 22% from three. It was not good. It was not good night offensively for a usually pretty good offense in the Utah Jazz. I also want to give a shout out to Isaiah Collier and Cody Williams, surprisingly, who at one point I thought was the worst player in the NBA. He actually has been giving some good minutes to them. He's improved as a cutter. Defensively was very solid. And we knew this is what Cody Williams could be in the future. And shout out to the Utah Jazz for continuing to have faith in him, because he is starting to finally pay them back for some of that faith. Man, this game, the turnover battle was a huge thing. A lot of them were enforced. We got out rebounding the glass by a lot today, which poses the question once again: will the Toronto Raptors actually trade for a center at the deadline? A 7-foot center. Now, Jakob Poeltl has been cleared for contact, so it seems like he heard the rumors and decided, okay, maybe I should start warming up to try and get back to playing. But he's still got no timetable. Back to contact drills. We'll see how long that lasts. We'll see if he even lasts past Thursday's trade deadline. One last thing I wanted to highlight, and it's been a little bit of a lingering issue. It's Colin Murray-Boyles. He's been such a bright spot for this Raptors team. I don't want to go in too much on him because it has felt like an issue that a lot of rookies face, but it's his aggressiveness. I feel like he's had this sort of pass-first mentality, but it's become sort of detrimental to his progress. There's been so many times where he's been wide open or one-on-one with even a smaller guy on him, and he passes it out for a three. He needs to channel his inner South Carolina where he goes up strong with that, because especially with a team like us who doesn't shoot the three ball very well, I would much rather Colin Murray-Boyles take all of those shots under the basket, because I have faith in his rim finishing ability. Next up, we have a game against the Minnesota Timberwolves and Anthony Edwards. My God, I am petrified of that game, because once again we face an issue where we don't have the best point of attack defender. We may put Scotty Barnes on Anthony Edwards, but then we have to find out who we're going to put on Julius Randle, and it becomes sort of like a chain event. Who do we hide Emmanuel quickly on? Who do we hide RJ Barrett on? It's sort of become a little bit of an issue, so I'm really interested to see how we tackle the challenge of Anthony Edwards. From Minnesota's Timberwolves standpoint, they're a top 5 offense. They get a ton of blocks, and they are a mid-tier defense. But the issue is we are going to need our 3-point shooting to show up against this really good offense, and it really hasn't shown up since that Warriors game. So I'm looking at Emmanuel quickly to have a big game. Looking at Brandon Ingram to finally hit some of his shots. Maybe a little bit of extra help off the bench from Sandro, Grady, and Jacoby, and even Jamal Shed. And yeah, this is going to be another tough game, but it would be another huge win for the Raptors. And I would be remiss without talking about a little bit of deadline news. There were a couple of trades today, finally. We had the Utah Jazz make a move for Jaren Jackson Jr. Loved it for them. That front court is absolutely tall as hell. They're like a mini Houston Rockets with that tall-ass lineup, plus a little midget in Keontae George, but he's such a baller, it doesn't really matter. I think they're going to absolutely make it work. They're going to bring back Walker Kessler, and that lineup, man, I've always said it about the Utah Jazz. I love what they're building there, and they've added another piece in Jaren Jackson Jr. for pretty cheap. The picks they gave up weren't nothing special, and yeah, it was a pretty good pickup for them. There's also Jaden Ivey news. He went to Chicago. James Harden is now a Cleveland Cavalier, which as a Raptor fan kind of sucks because we ain't. That's some more competition in the goddamn East, and we might end up facing a Donovan Mitchell, James Harden, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, Cleveland Cavaliers in the first round. Last but not least, on a Raptors standpoint, there was more development in the Domantas Sabonis trade news. There is a lot of smoke around this. It is absolutely scaring me. You all know my position on it. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but apparently the report that is coming out from Chris Haynes is that we are not willing to give up a first-round pick in this deal, and that is what this talking point is. There was a lot of people saying it was about Jakob Poeltl and where we would reroute that. I feel like that has been decided. Chris Haynes is talking about how now we aren't budging on giving up a first-round pick. We only want to give up second-round picks. So we will see if Bobby Webster will get away with that. We'll see if the Kings will finally cave. I have a bad feeling that they absolutely will, and we will be stuck with with Domantas Sabonis, who is a very talented player, but I felt like we would be giving up too much. But you know what? I'm not the general manager. 2 days until the trade deadline. One more game before the deadline passes, and then we have one on deadline day as well. So we will see what the new look Toronto Raptors are. A trade may end up breaking while I'm recording the next episode of the Raptors Rundown, so stay tuned for that. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment. I will see you guys in the next episode of the Raptors Rundown.